I've decided to up my game here in my garage slash wood shop, and I've upgraded my table saw. I had been using this beginner skill saw for the last 18-20 months or so, but I thought I'm going to start making some furniture. I needed a little more precision, so I'm going with this Delta 10-inch contractor saw, model 36725. Just picked it up, so we'll be unboxing it here and setting it up, and let's see how that works out. Here's all that's left now is the saw that's packed, as you can see, upside down. So we'll get that out of there and start assembling. Well, here's all the parts as it just came out of the box, laid out on the table. Plus the stand itself. What's left in the box is the saw itself. Into that one package of parts I pulled out were these individual parts. And these individual part bags are lettered. And furthermore, like these are broken down into subparts for the step. Comes with this quick assembly guide, and so for instance they list bag A, which corresponds to bag A, and then the various parts for that step. I bolted the legs together, and now we'll just insert them into the saw. And this is kind of your first decision you're going to have to make. Do you want the lift wheel on the left side of the saw or the right side? The right side will have the extension where you might want to put a router at some time. It has the longer rail for the fence. And the way you can tell whether the left or right, this is going to be where you can store your fence. That's going to be on the left side of the saw. So I've seen them both ways. I've elected to put the lift mechanism on the left of the saw. So we'll see how that works. One of the things to look for before you put the legs into the actual table saw assembly is check to make sure that the holes aren't covered with a piece of tape that they used before they painted. They left all of the ones on the black tubes. So when I first tried to put the screws in, the bolts in, they wouldn't go because what's going on here, I had to take the leg assembly off, peeled off the tape. No big deal, just save you a step. So check all of these openings for the tape, both on the gray part and black part. Okay, I just stood it up with the help of a neighbor. No problem at all. We'll now start putting on the wings. Here's a little interesting item. The specs on the website say the table height is 35 inches. I get 37. And that's with the wheels down. Table's set 37 inches. Well, the extension wings are now going on, and what I did was just put the bolts in underneath as they called for. But one of the things I found was just putting on this level will make leveling out the wings to the main table a lot easier. I can draw it up even, and there it is. I haven't done this side yet. There it is. It's should be pretty straight on. I should note here too that on the extension wings, one set of holes is slotted while the other set is round. The slotted sets of holes go against the tabletop. Okay, on to the front rails. The rails are what's going to support the fence assembly. And what we have here is one long piece and the shorter piece. And there's 4 pieces of angle iron. 2 for the back, 2 for the front. The front 2 are the heavier 2 pieces. The back 2 are a lot lighter. And we're now on to bag D, the first sleeve for the bolts that'll hold it on. Bag D. Well, next up is the front rail that'll be the guide for the fence. It's a 2-part system, as you probably already know. And what I've done here is just put in the bolts that it's called for, just finger tight. And now, with this supply tool, they're supposed to be our guide. And got a Harbor Freight magnet here. That'll hold it into place. And what I need to do is to get it lined up square with this end. So let's tighten this. Square. And we'll just keep working our way down here and trying to get the other ones squared up. The second section of the front rail's on now, using the same technique, if you will, as the first section. Mainly I wanted to make sure this lined up, and it seems like it did. So we'll see how it works once I get the fence on. After the 2 front rail guides are on, up comes this rail union plate with 2 bolts and a nut. So this goes underneath, and just thread the bolts down in there. After putting the front rail on, this is what we have left in the bag. Now for the rear rails, these bolts and nuts are used to go into the stamped steel wings. These go into the cast iron tables, and these happen to be for the spreader. Well, I have the 2 parts of the back rail now installed. This happened to be a little trickier than the front. but I ended up getting it at least even. What I ended up doing was taking my level and putting it between the two rails from the front and back. Then use that as my starting point, if you will. So evening out from front to back on this side, this became my starting point to even out the rest. And as a note of reference, this alignment tool they give you, this slot is for the back rail alignment. But the slot is wider than the rails. As it turned out, should I go to the top or to the bottom alignment? Turned out, after I lined it to the front rail, it was right in the middle. So the rail happens to be right in the middle of this slot throughout the entire assembly of the back rail. Well, I have an update. I found after I've assembled both rails, front and back, and put the fence on, I found that this back rail guide has to be at the very top of our slot here. So by having this back rail up as close to the top of this slot as you can, gives us more clearance in here to clear the miter slots. Easy adjustment. And then the spreader bar bolts on. Coming down to the end now, I'm on bag E, the last bag. These are for attaching the fence guide and the power switch and the holding the cord. So let's go do that now. One thing to note when you're attaching the fence guide to the rail, there's a gap of about 1 inch. When you're lining the fence guide up, you won't put it flush against the rail, but it'll be apparent with the holes underneath when they align. On the far left, there are 2 holes for the power supply. When I first put these screws in that hold the fence guide, I just hand tighten them. Now I'm just snugging them up. Now we just have to mount the power switch onto the rail. And we'll tighten those down. Now there's one last item in that bag E, and that's this little clip. And they want you to put that on the power cord. So I've just slipped it on the power cord, the plug, and I'm behind the power switch right here. This is the front rail. There is a small hole back there that this small screw goes into, kind of hold this wire across the power cord. So let's put that in, and there we have it. Again, this is the back of the power switch. Up here's the front. Back of the power switch, there's a small hole right there, and that's where this little clip goes. And as another note, read this note that's on the wheel for raising the blade. Just turn the blade 45 degrees because there's some styrofoam that's protecting the motor. Once you have it set at 45 degrees, just go around the other side and you can reach right in where the dust port opening is and pull it out. Well, there you have it. My version of putting together this Delta 3672.5 table saw. I didn't think it was bad at all. Instructions left something to be desired, but it's really not that hard at all. And all the parts fit. So now we'll go ahead and check out the alignments, tune it up a little bit, and see where we go. Thanks for watching. See you at my next project.